1 billion sats today is 10 Bitcoin. In the future, even just a few thousand sats could be worth way more than 1 billion sats is today, because it purchases and acquires a far higher standard of living and quality of life. Bitcoin is the one algorithm we have to funnel this exponentially larger amount of electricity into a finite accounting system. And so if people want to have exposure to those energy sources in the future, if they want to have exposure to that purchasing power in the future, they should probably get some Bitcoin. It's like going back in time and buying a small percentage, a small fixed percentage of the sum total of the human race. When someone buys a certain amount of Bitcoin, they are buying a certain fraction of the energy produced and consumed of the 22nd century, of the 23rd century, and maybe even beyond that even. They're buying a specific fraction of future energy. And so literally, as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, the potential upside for Bitcoin only increases as the runway of future human progress and future energy production and consumption gets extended outwards on a more and more solid foundation.
Luke Broyles, a passionate content creator, podcaster, and Bitcoin advisor, is well known for his advocacy of Bitcoin and its transformative potential. His work often draws parallels between past technologies and the rapid changes brought by current advancements, highlighting the profound impact of exponential growth. In this video, we discuss the future of energy production and Bitcoin mining. He explains how Bitcoin's incentives drive cleaner and more abundant energy production worldwide, leading to a more prosperous society. When you invest in Bitcoin, you're essentially securing a future share of global total energy production. Bitcoin is a fixed accounting system that represents the best means of preserving and accessing energy in the future. Luke describes that when you buy Bitcoin today, you are buying a fixed fraction of the total global energy production at some point in the future. But before we do that, I want to introduce our sponsors, Stampseed, the Orange Pill app, and Swan. Our partners are businesses and people that we respect, and our products that we at Bit Intelligence personally use. You're watching 21 Voices.
The common reactionary intuition is that, oh my goodness, the human population is expanding. We're using more energy than we used to, and more people are wanting to use more energy than they're used to. And so what we have to do is we have to slow the amount of energy that people are demanding. We have to slow the increasing population. I think our linear thinking reaction to an exponential nature of society is to try to force it back into linear terms, right? We don't know how to solve an exponential energy problem that the world's facing and that's having negative externalities on the environment. So let's apply a linear solution. But I think, unfortunately, this misunderstanding that, hey, we have less in common with the future than the past, is limiting our thinking and the opportunities ahead. It's limiting our thinking when it comes to nuclear energy. It's limiting our thinking when it comes to future energy sources and innovative ways to make more efficient use of the energy we already have. And so, unfortunately, I think that many governments and money printing institutions, let's say, have a high incentive to continue to force that linear thinking, because you can't have exponential energy increase with an exponentially increasing money supply. Because if the energy increases exponentially while you're creating new currency units exponentially, you're not really being able to exploit society. You need linear solutions when you're having exponential monetary increase. And so my point is, you cannot have a wealthy society and an energy poor society simultaneously. We all know this, but unfortunately, a lot of people, even though they might know this, they still don't know how to combat that with that exponential problem of we're using too much energy. The Earth is just as inefficient with 100 million hunter-gatherers as 8 billion modern humans today, because the hunter-gatherers would go out, hunt all the species to eat and consume them. They'd go out and harvest all the berries, all the fruits, and everything out there, and they would force these extinctions for these large apex predators and these large forms of prey, eventually until ecosystems would collapse because there would be no more animals left. Now, fortunately, humans upgraded to superior technological sources, to early days agriculture, before we hit that threshold. And then when we began hitting the upper thresholds of the early agricultural days, we advanced again and again and again, and that's where we are today. The Earth today is just as insustainable with our current population, with our current technological resources, as it was thousands of years ago, when we had not even 1/10% of the world population and far, far more inferior technology. So the ultimate solution here that I'm getting at is that if we want to solve climate change, if we want to solve these environmental problems, we need linear solutions. 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 We need linear solutions really what we're trying to solve is not an environmental problem. What we're really trying to solve is an energy production and consumption and stewardship problem. That's the problem we're trying to solve. And the way you solve that is not by suppressing human flourishing. It is by focusing on and accelerating human abundance by increasing energy production and consumption. If you really want to solve the climate crisis, you don't force the apex predator to become hungrier and in shorter time preference. You don't do that, right? Because really, if we all boil it down, that's what's happening. And we are consuming the Earth faster than the Earth can replenish itself. And so you don't fix that problem by putting the humans into a box and scaring them, even if the humans themselves are doing it. You don't solve that problem by these political institutions getting humans hungrier, more desperate, more inefficient, using inferior energy sources. That actually makes the problem worse, and in the process, you're killing human beings. It's actively evil, and it's actively inefficient. So really, when it comes to Bitcoin, and when it comes to this climate concern and environmental concern, really what people need to understand is that the only solution out of the climate change crisis that is moral, as well as actually going to work, is if you align incentives. This is not a zero-sum game between the endangered animals and the ecosystems on the verge of collapse and the humans. This is not a zero-sum game. And if you make it a zero-sum game, the environment loses every single time. I'm sorry to say, but the humans can channel more energy than the endangered salamanders and the penguins and the whales can do. My counter perspective to that as a Bitcoiner is that this is not a zero-sum game of humans versus environment. It is possible for the environment to flourish as well as humans. And our job as humans, being the apex predator, is to make sure we're stewarding the environment well, that we're being fruitful and multiplying while not causing more harm to our surroundings, which of course eventually will cause more harm back to us in the future. So it is not a zero-sum game. It is possible for us to steward things in a proper way to increase efficiency, to increase abundance, and to minimize negative externalities, so that for every additional negative externality we're adding, we're increasing multiple positive externalities. And Bitcoin, fortunately, does this in many wonderful ways. Yes, Bitcoin uses energy. Yes, Bitcoin uses electricity, and electricity emits carbon into the atmosphere. However, Bitcoin, being so tiny, without a marketing budget, without carbon credits, without a central committee determining who uses what energy, Bitcoin is the single greatest accelerator for renewable energies. And most people in Bitcoiners aren't even necessarily pro renewable energy to a large degree. It's simply that Bitcoin's incentive is to find the cheapest energy possible. Because that is the ultimate reason why renewable energies and more quote-unquote clean energy sources have not been adopted. They're not profitable. They don't meet that self-preservation need, right? If you're going to choose between an energy source that is better for the planet but worse for you versus the other energy source that is worse for the planet but better for you, of course you're going to choose the latter, not the former, because if you choose the former, you're going to starve eventually, right? And that's the problem with zero-sum thinking, that it's one or the other. Either we have to have energy sources worse for us and better for the planet, or better for the planet and worse for us. Energy reductionists like to think that, we have to force people to do the alternate because they won't choose that on their own. But again, as a Bitcoiner, I don't think it's that binary. I don't think it's that zero-sum. I think actually it's possible to have an energy source better for humans and better for the planet. And really that's what Bitcoin does, because like I said, these energy resources are not dependable. They are not dependable to be profitable, and they are not dependable to bring consistent energy. Wind does not always blow. The sun does not always shine, right? Literally a third to half of the day the sun is not shining, right? So there's significant periods of time. These renewable energy sources are not like fossil fuel where they can just be turned on. But Bitcoin finds the cheapest energy, and because it finds the cheapest energy is the energy excess when renewables are in what is called the duck curve, where they are in either over-optimal or under-optimal periods of energy demand. So Bitcoin finds that energy, it accelerates that energy, makes it more profitable. So literally, Bitcoin is accelerating energy sources that are better for the planet in a way that is more profitable for humans than fossil fuels alone. And to me, that's an incredibly exciting thing, because it unlocks a lot of opportunities, a lot of perspectives for the future that we haven't even yet considered. It makes things like nuclear energy, like hydro energy, and other forms of energy that are only being conceived of today, even more of a possible future ahead.
Please bear with us for a quick message from our sponsors. These videos take a lot of time to make, and we've partnered with brands we trust like Stampseed and the Orange Pill app in order to get the funding we need to bring you these videos every week. Don't store your Bitcoin in cold storage without stamping your seed phrase on an indestructible titanium plate. Stamp seed is fireproof, rust-proof, impact-proof, and easy to hide. It has no loose parts and will give you ultimate peace of mind that your Bitcoin is safe and sound for the long term. Click the link in the description below for 15% off your stamping kit. When I finally got Bitcoin, it hit me like a lightning bolt. It was the currency of the future, the only money that truly mattered. But there was a problem. I didn't know anyone else that thought like me. That is until I discovered the Orange Pill app. Suddenly, I was connected with a network of like-minded Bitcoin enthusiasts, right in my own city. The Orange Pill app is more than just a social network. It's a community of passionate individuals determined to change the world, one Satoshi at a time. This series is brought to you by Swan and created by Bit Intelligence. Remember to like this video and subscribe to both our channels for more videos like this every week. Thanks for watching.
And so I think if we really want to solve this exponential change that we're facing ourselves in right now, the early 21st century, where we have more and more mouths to feed and we're depleting our soil of its nutrients, where we have more and more humans and more pollution, where we have all these things, the single greatest accelerator of positive change, in my view, is to accelerate the global, geographically independent technology that makes these things profitable, both for humans and incentivizes these positive externalities on the world. So to me, Bitcoin's really exciting in this manner, and I would genuinely argue that Bitcoin is the single greatest accelerator of environmental improvement on the planet. Bitcoin has a legitimate chance to uniting the world and having a singular currency that does not require political influence to manipulate. Bitcoin does not require wars, navies, or standing armies to enforce its monetary policy onto the rest of the world. So that brings us to the question, why should I buy Bitcoin? Really, the reason people want to have a higher net worth, quote unquote, is because they want to be able to acquire more energy in the future than they do today, than they do currently. And so the only way to do that is to have exposure to the technological innovations of the future. The technological innovations of the future are digital. They are of that nature, and people are only going to be willing to exchange them for a digital global currency that requires energy to create. Now, what is the best form of energy that's unifying in that sense? It's electricity, because computers need electricity to run. If you are spending electricity to create Bitcoin, you are inherently not spending that electricity on a computer or an AI data center or some other form of internet device, right? You're using that electricity, a valuable commodity, for this other commodity that is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin requires electricity to create, and it requires more electricity with every halving that comes and goes. So why should someone buy Bitcoin? Because electricity is the underlying commodity of the digital age and of the planet, and Bitcoin is the one algorithm we have to funnel this exponentially larger amount of electricity into a finite accounting system. And so if people want to have exposure to those energy sources in the future, if they want to have exposure to that purchasing power in the future, they should probably get some Bitcoin. It's like going back in time and buying a small percentage, a small fixed percentage of the sum total of the human race, right? In the same way someone buys a small fraction of the American stock market to gain exposure to the American corporate world, it's like going back in time and buying a fixed share of the human energy world, not just of America, not just the corporate energy of America, the sum total of energy in the world. And so that's essentially what people, when they buy Bitcoin today, are doing. When someone buys a certain amount of Bitcoin, they are buying a certain fraction of the energy produced and consumed of the 22nd century, of the 23rd century, and maybe even beyond that even. They're buying a specific fraction of future energy. And so when we try to price Bitcoin in terms of dollars, we think it's number go up technology. In context of the new growing energy system, the new growing monetary empire that is Bitcoin, we're going to see the amount of human energy being directed away from the political currency unit system and towards Bitcoin. And so the reason to buy Bitcoin is because you want more energy. And the only way to get more energy in the future than you are today is to be exposed to that future energy system. And that's why people should buy Bitcoin. And so literally, as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, the potential upside for Bitcoin only increases as the runway of future human progress and future energy production and consumption gets extended outwards on a more and more solid foundation. At every point in the future, if you are ultimately an optimist and you think that humanity is going to continue innovating, at any point in the future, we are going to be channeling more energy into the future than the past. And if you believe that Bitcoin will remain secure and it will remain decentralized, then that accounting system is going to be pricing in that larger amount of energy, right? How do you begin to price in Antarctica until you discovered it in 1820? How do you begin to price in Australia, North America, South America, let alone the millions and billions of people that will be moving there and building infrastructure on top of it for centuries? How do you begin pricing that in until it has even been discovered, until it has even been found? 1 billion sats today is 10 Bitcoin. In the future, even just a few thousand sats could be worth way more than 1 billion sats is today, because it purchases and acquires a far higher standard of living and quality of life. So if you own 1 million sats, if you own 100 million sats, 1 Bitcoin, or if you own 1 billion sats, 10 Bitcoin, no matter how much Bitcoin you own, the single greatest question is not what price is Bitcoin to go to. The single greatest question is, how do I make sure I store it properly so I don't lose it between here and there, whether it's 500 years or 5 years away? How do I make sure I keep what I have? Because if I keep what I have and Bitcoin remains secure and decentralized, then it's only going up forever, both in terms of political currency units of the US dollar and in terms of every other form of energy indefinitely, as long as the human race continues to survive, thrive, and grow and flourish.
Luke's insights reveal a critical disconnection between common misperceptions of energy use and the reality of building a prosperous society. Of course, we need to be cognizant about not wasting energy, but the real problem that needs to be addressed is where and how our energy is created. We need a majority of our energy to come from clean, carbon-free sources. Whether you believe in climate change or not, I bet you'd rather live across the street from a geothermal energy plant than a coal-fired one. The problem is that popular renewable energy sources like wind and solar are having a tough time being adopted. This is because of the issues it poses grid operators who are expected to manage intermittent supply with variable demand. But let's forget all that for a second. The point here is that the best possible vote that you can make for the climate is by buying Bitcoin, contrary to what most mainstream media outlets would even consider saying. Bitcoin is also the least risky way to acquire more energy for yourself and your family in the future. So not only is it the best thing that you can do for the environment, it's also the best thing that you can do for yourself, regardless of your personal goals or political beliefs. As you can imagine, that's a very powerful thing, to align different groups of people, regardless of whether or not they believe in some movement or not, to do the same thing that produces a good benefit both for the people that don't believe in it and for the people that do. Anyway, that's enough for today. Stay tuned and remember to subscribe for the latest recaps, insights, and films about all things Bitcoin. This is 21 Voices. If you want to watch another episode, try this one here.